Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is dedicated by Betty Sit in celebration of the birth of a baby girl to David and Ellen Sit. Congratulations. That's a couple days in the past waiting for the next Breakfast in the Class. Also sponsored by Stephen Rappaport. Breakfast King, dedicated in honor of the rabbis Isaac Daba and Haron Shohet. Breakfast in the Class dedicated in loving memory of Zach Mishan, Alav Shalom, Linishbat Zachariah Ben Sarah, sponsored by Robert and Renata Marcus. Zach, you were a tremendous light in the life of so many of the people around you. You cared for everybody. You had a sensitivity and a heart that was unimaginable. We miss you, and we miss you dearly. Also dedicated in loving memory of Carol Silvera's father, Isaac Hedaya, Lilu Nishmat Yitzhak Ben Esther, sponsored by Carol and Maurice Silvera. The week of Breakfast in the Class is dedicated for the speedy and complete refuah shleima for Abud Ben Fortun by his parents Zuri and Fortun. Bezat Hashem, we should see a complete recovery. For refuah shleima for Chana Batzima Fega and Eliyahu Shimon Ben Mazal Fortuné. Also dedicated for the entire year in loving memory of Nishmat Ruth Bat Adela Orfali Aliyah Shalom, sponsored by our family. And the week of Kobu was sponsored by David E. Ash in honor of you and your substantial capacity to do good today and every day. Last but not least, I would love to shout out a very special bar mitzvah boy whose name is Yehuda Welton, who listens to the Breakfast and the Class every single day for 5 years already. Goes to bed every night by listening to Breakfast and the Class. So just in case you wanted to know if you could have cereal for dinner, ask Yehuda Welton. You could have Breakfast and the Class in bed. Fantastic. My friends, let me just say this. What a special boy this is. He's offered answers to questions we've asked on the podcast. He knows every class that we've ever said by heart. I started to tell him something last night. I went to his bar mitzvah to surprise him. And he was very emotional. And I said, I'm going to share a little Dvar Torah with him. I started sharing. The kid already knew what I was going to say. Shtabach Shemo. Fantastic. He's a little Talmid Chacham already. We're really, really proud of him. But the thing that made the biggest impression on me was seeing how emotional he became when he saw me walk into the bar mitzvah. That really made an impact on me. It made it so special to see that for this young man, the only thing he wanted to come to his bar mitzvah is his rabbi. His rabbi from the Breakfast in the Class. It was so special. Some other people want, the most important thing would be a baseball player, basketball player, football player, really, a singer, an actor. That's who they would love to be. That would make their simcha complete. But to see someone who the only thing he wanted was a person he studied Torah from was just really remarkable. Really, really was very, very proud of him. And it was, I have to tell you, I went for Chizuk, and I got Chizuk myself. So Mazal Tov Yehuda, we're expecting big things from you. # no pressure. Okay. And also try and sleep after you heard that. Okay, my friends, let us begin. So, Be'ezrat Hashem, I hope to be able to get a couple of days to recover from the holiday season, to get my voice back and whatever. So I probably will not be giving Breakfast in the Class the next couple of days. I'll probably be out of town, just trying to rest up and recuperate. Be'ezrat Hashem. Now, therefore, I very much wanted to speak today about something that really made a huge impact on me when I was studying it. Let's begin by looking at this. We know at the end of the week we're going to have Rosh Chodesh is going to be this week on Friday and on Shabbat. And what's the name of the month that we're heading into? The name of the month is Cheshvan. But as a couple of people already pointed out, the month is called not Cheshvan, but Mar Cheshvan, bitter Cheshvan. I talk about having a positive mindset, right? So what month is it? Oh, it's a bitter Cheshvan. It's the terrible Tishrei. It's like, the miserable Mar Cheshvans, right? What is it? What is this? What is the idea of calling Mar Cheshvan Mar? It almost sounds anti-Jewish. We have one situation where we talk about a month in the negative fashion. What month is that? Mishenichnas Av Mima'atim b'simcha. Once Av comes in, we diminish our joy. But even there, it just says we diminish our joy. The idea that you could call a month Mar Cheshvan, bitter Cheshvan, it doesn't sound very Jewish. So I want to share with you something that I saw in a sefer put out by Rav Peretz, very, very special book on Chachmei Sfarad. I want to share with you something very powerful. So he says that the word Mar, bitter, Mar does not only mean bitter. We also find the word Mar meaning other things. And I want to try together with you, to fashion a way of seeing this idea of Mar Cheshvan in maybe a little bit of a different light. The first idea he brings from the Pri Hadash is that the word Mar actually also means drop, a drop, or dripping. Where do we find that? The Pasuk says, Hen goyim kemar medeli. The nations of the world, kemar medeli, are like a drop from a bucket filled with water. So this idea of mar, which means a drop, okay, is indicative of the fact that in this month is when we first begin to pray for the rain. So the idea of mar, a drop of rain, a drop references the fact that our tefillot begin for rain in the month of Cheshvan. Now some of you are looking at me a little cockamamie, as well you should, because most of the people here in this room are not from Israel. And outside of Israel, we begin saying, requesting rain in what day? December 4th or December 5th, depending on the year. So we don't ask for it in Cheshvan. But in Eretz Israel, what day do we switch to requesting rain? Zayin Cheshvan. Okay? Not only that, as we said yesterday from Chamovadia, if a person by mistake prays the wrong Barechenu instead of Barech Aleinu, right? Excuse me, if they say Barech Aleinu early before we switch over, the halakha is they don't have to repeat the Amidah. Why? Because even though we didn't start asking for rain yet, it's already the time of rain. The only reason why we refrain from asking for rain, okay? The only reason why we hold back is because the people that came to the Beit HaMikdash, we want to give them a chance to get back home. And the furthest yishuv, the furthest settlement from Yerushalayim was a 2-week travel journey away. So we wait 14 days till Zayin Cheshvan. But this time is already a time of rain. So therefore, the pasuk, the minhag of Mar, calling it Mar Cheshvan, is the drops of Cheshvan. That's the first answer. The second answer is, as famous we know, it's a month that does not have any Yom Tov inside of it. Okay, now, are there other months that don't have Yomim Tovim? There are. Yeah? Sorry? What does Tammuz have? What does Tevet have? Now, at least Tevet has leftovers of Chanukah. So at least there's something that spills into it. It's not a Tevet holiday, right? But Tammuz has nothing. What does Av have? Nothing. Av has Tu B'Av, very good. It's not a holiday, right? But it's a Yom Tov. It's a good day, but not a Yom Tov. Right? Not only that, though, the answer to that question is that Av does have a holiday. Because the Pasuk says about Tisha B'Av, Kara alai moed. It's going to become literally a moed, like one of the moadim, when we find redemption, okay? So the idea that it's a day, it's a month that doesn't have a holiday means that we're calling it bitter. We're not saying it's bitter because it's a terrible holiday. We're saying that you know what we consider bitter? The lack of a holiday. Now, I want to revisit that idea in just a second. We'll come back to that. The third idea is that the word mar is brought down from the Nei Yisrael. The word mar is, reason why it's called mar is because the language of the Gemara says in Masechet Chagiga that when a person says over a Dvar Torah, I remember I said to someone today, the other day, we shared it in the morning class, I mentioned the Chidush from the Ramban, from Nachmanides. So I said, this morning, the Ramban said, and I caught myself, I'm like, the Ramban didn't say it this morning. I mean, I said it this morning, but then I realized, actually, I was correct. I once realized, at one time I made a mistake, but later on I realized that I hadn't made a mistake, right? Right, that's what it was. The Ramban said this morning, the Gemara Chagiga says, that when you say over the words of Torah from a Talmid Chacham, Merachshin Sefatayu, his lips move in his grave. And the Gemara brings a pasuk, Siftotav, his lips, Dovevot Bakever. They speak in the grave. So when you say over words of Torah from somebody, you bring that person to life, and actually that morning, the Ramban had said something. He had said that chidush in our class. Now my friends, why am I sharing these three ideas? What is the point of communicating these three ideas? And I want to share with you something very, very deep that I believe communicates the power of this month. So I mentioned to you that Mar means the drops of rain, and that now is the time that we begin to pray for rain. But what I did not mention to you is that this month also is the beginning of the Mabul. And it's a wild thing that on Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, we're going to read the story of Noach and the Mabul. Okay? Excellent. 17th of Cheshvan, says Adina. Now, just so we understand, what does that mean? That the Mabul is in Cheshvan. What does that mean? It means that the power of this month carried within it the seeds for the Mabul. Now, what do you mean? Maybe that's just the day that it happened on. The answer is, that's true. But remember that God delayed the coming of the flood for 120 years while Noach is building the Teva. If God wanted in any other month, he would have delayed it 120 years and 2 months. That means that after all the delaying, when was the perfect month? The perfect month for this flood to happen was when? Was in the month of Mar Cheshvan. Now, I want to try and bring together these ideas to coalesce for us to realize what is special about, quote unquote, the bitter month. Please only say Amen if you're listening to this live. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol nהיה baro. Perfect coffee. Thank you so much. I don't know whoever made that one. Excellent. Okay. Let's begin. So, very big machloket, by the way. Very big question. You know that? You're not allowed to have a Kohen serve you. You're not allowed to have a Kohen serve you. Shtabach Shema. So, like as an example, you can't tell the Kohen, do this for me. Because a Kohen is meant to be elevated. So you're not supposed to ask Kohen, could you go do this? Could you go get that? You're not supposed to do that. So there's a big question in halakha. What if you have a Kohen who's a Talmid? Because a Talmid has an obligation to serve his rabbi, right? To elevate his rabbi. But the rabbi has an obligation to elevate the Kohen. It's a question in halakha. L'ma'aseh we posek that he's allowed to. Especially if you don't even ask. Ashrecha, God bless. Okay, so let's try and understand what is so special about this bitter month. I want to draw your attention to one last piece of this. This idea that Mar means, number one, drops, little drips of something. On a second level, that Mar also means that it's bereft of Yom Tov. And on the third level, that Mar means that the lips of a person, of a Sadiq, are speaking. Why do we call this? What does this month have to do with the lips speaking? Mirachshan. Mar comes from Mirachshin. But the lips move. The idea is, all throughout the period before of Rosh Hashanah, Kippur, Sukkot, Hoshana Rabbah, we promised Hashem many things. Now the question is that going to actually come to fruition? Are our lips going to move? We promised Hashem that we'd come to synagogue. We promised Hashem that we'd learn something. We'd start a masechet. We'd learn something. We'd start a class, a chavruta. Are we actually doing those things? The same way that body comes alive. Mirachshin sifatayu. The lips start to move. Are our dead bodies coming to life? This person, this me, that is as compared, not that I'm a dead guy, but as compared to my potential, I'm like a dead guy. I'm so not fulfilling what I came to the world to fulfill as compared to what God made me to be, that it's like a dead guy not doing anything. So Merachshan Sifatay, this is a month that we actually come alive. That's the hint that we're being given over here by the Ner Yisrael, that we have an opportunity to take our prayers, take our efforts, take our commitments, and literally begin drop by drop from Lashon Mark Mideli to be able to come alive. Now, how does a person begin this slow process of literally techiyat hametim? How do you do that? How do you bring yourself to life? How do you crack the shell of the egg and have the little chick emerge and become something? How do you turn yourself, take the first step towards becoming the new you? How do you do that? One drop at a time? The answer is very simple. And my friends, to understand this, we're going to focus on the second of the two reasons of the Kemach Solet, that a person who looks at this month and calls it bitter. Why is it bitter? It's bitter because there's no holidays in it. Let's try and understand what that means. We know that when it came to the flood, the people were incredibly wicked. The corruption had permeated every stage of society. The corruption, it says, even had permeated the animal kingdom itself. So much so, say Chazal, that in the process of the flood, the world was so tameh that he needed to wipe away a portion of the surface of the earth itself. Imagine what happens when you take an atom bomb, 1,000 atom bombs, and you explode it over a place. What happens to the ground itself? Even today, you can't live in Chernobyl. Why not? Because the radiation, the tainting of the trees, of the plants, they're radioactive. You live there, ishtabach shemo, you'll grow a third ear, 2 noses, right? It's a crazy situation of contamination. What contaminated? I want to ask what I think is a powerful question. What contaminated the people of the generation of the flood to the point that it turned the animals corrupt, that it turned the earth corrupt? How did they manage to do something of such devastating consequences? You know, we talk a lot about these bunker bombs that Israel is getting, not getting, is getting, not getting, is getting, right? The idea that you could make an impact underneath the ground. That's the story of the flood. So what was the thing that caused such damage? And I must say this. Damage is not caused, and relief and beauty is not found in instantaneous manners. So as an example, let's say you find a tree, and the tree is drying up, doesn't have enough water. We're actually living right now through a drought. Shtabach Shemo for the drought during the week of Sukkot. I don't remember on record a Sukkot where we did not see 1 drop of rain, morning, noon, and night. I was zochet to sleep in the sukkah every single night of the holiday. I don't remember. Does anyone remember a Sukkot like that? Day, night, nothing. Simchat Torah every year, we're flipping out. We're on the street. Is it going to rain? Not going to rain? Here we strolled in. Happy as Larry. So my friends, imagine you have, right? You remember that? You remember those days, right? Anyway, so you have what's it called? You have a tree. The tree is completely dried out. All right. What do you do for this tree? Imagine I take 5 buckets of water and I dump it on the tree. What will it do? Nothing. What will happen is the earth will eventually become oversaturated. The water will have nowhere to go. Okay, that's what happens in flooding. And the water will run off somewhere else. The only way to truly water something is to be able to water it like we talk about in Ha'azinu Hashemayim Adabera, Tishma Tizal Katal Imrati, right? We talk about the fact that the rain needs to be in enough of a measure that the land can absorb it. Beracha that cannot be absorbed is not beracha, it's kilala. You give a guy more money than he can handle, you know what happens? He spends it on drugs. He becomes a spoiled person. 100% of the time, that's what happens. Go look at the numbers of people who win the lottery that wind up committing suicide, wind up getting divorced. The numbers are not normal. You know why? Because that much beracha in 1 second, when you can't absorb it, beracha that's not absorbable is a kilala. That's what it means where God says when you inherit the land of Israel, you're not, lo tuchal, you cannot conquer it quickly. Pen tirbe alecha. Maybe what will happen if you conquer it too quickly? Pen tirbe alecha, there'll be too many. Hayat hasadeh, there'll be too many animals. And you know what I always think the Gemara, the Pasuk is telling you? Not there'll be too many animals. There'll be too many animals. You gave everybody, in 2 seconds, they moved from a penniless guy in the desert to a place where you have a big house, batim mileim kol tub, in the walls of every house is treasure, ya'ani. Every human being will become hayat hasadeh. So my friends, the month of Cheshvan, God says, I gave you so much beracha on Rosh Hashanah Kippur. I need to now give it to you, but I need to give it to you in a way that you can handle. The first pshat in Mar means drop by drop. Now my friends, what happened in the generation of the flood was the same thing. You changed for the good, you receive good in small amounts. But when you change for the bad, and you receive bad, also what happens? Kemar medeli, also slowly but surely. Tzav la tzav, kav la kav. How did they become so corrupt? Says the Midrash that their deen was not signed only al gezer, stealing. What in the world? That's murdering 50 people a day. And you're telling me about the fact that when he went to the self-checkout in CVS, he only scanned one of the 8 bananas? This is what you're telling. Listen, what is this, Al Capone? Right, we're gonna get the guy for tax evasion, but the guy, he's killing every 3 days. Boom, right? That's what's going on with Al Capone. This is what Hashem is doing. Look, the deen is not signed ela la gezel. What does it mean? The Sifrei Musar teach us something unbelievable. You can't get a guy to kill people. You can't get him. It's impossible. You can't get a guy from finger painting to killing people. From kindergarten, where he's gluing popsicle sticks together to make a house. You can't get that kid to become a murderer. You can't. The Yetzer Hara can't do that. It's too good to too bad. But you know what you could get him to do? You could get him to take one popsicle stick from the other kid's box. Easy. You could get him to grab the other kid's glue. You know what's so bad about Gezel? The concept of Gezel says, I don't understand what belongs to me, and I don't recognize what belongs to you. I don't understand that if I want something, I have to earn that thing. That's the underpinnings of what makes Gezel the sin that it is. And my friends, on that pressure point lies all mitzvot and averot. If I don't understand that I need to work for something that I want, and I don't understand that something could belong to someone else, then there's not a mitzvah in the Torah that I'll do. Why? Our mitzvot come from the fact that we recognize La'Hashem ha'aretz u'mlo'ah. You're a person who steals. What don't you recognize? There you go. That's why the Gemara in Berachot says, "Haneheneh ma'olam hazeh b'li beracha." Right? What are you? You're a thief. Why are you a thief? Not just because you stole it from Hashem's fruit basket. You are in your essence a thief. You're a person who doesn't recognize that something could belong to someone else. And that in order to get that thing, I need to do something to earn it. The people of the generation of the flood were capable of arayot, of adultery. You know what? What does it mean? She's your wife. I want her. That's gezel. I don't understand. What is it? What do you mean? I shouldn't kill you. You have something that I want. And I don't need to work for that thing. All I need to do is take it. And if I take it, what's going to happen? You're going to stop me. So I'm not killing you. I'm hasarat ha-mini'ah, like I say on Shabbat. I'm taking away the thing that's going to stop me. I'm going to remove the thing that's stopping me from getting. You know what? You're a destiny murderer. This is my destiny. I'm just making sure that nothing gets in the way. I'll come up with very fancy language to be able to explain how what I did is not murder. My friends, if you thought that this doesn't happen, open your eyes, it's happening now. They're not murderers or terrorists, they're freedom fighters. They're resistance. They're not terrorists, murderers, baby killers, rapists. What are they? They are a resistance fighting army that rapes in order to have resistance. This game that you could play, where does it begin? It begins with Gezel. This is the first drop. So one drop is capable of bringing Mabul. Mar Cheshvan, one drop, is capable of being the month of the Mabul. And here's the crazy part. Ready for this? The antidote to the tiniest gezel resulting in the worst sins, the lack of recognition that I need to earn my place. I need to do the right thing. I need to recognize what belongs to others, and especially God. The antidote to that, my friends, is when a person recognizes that you know what is bitter in this life. A ganav looks at his life and he feels that bitterness is what? Not having a thing that I want. So therefore, says this, the Kemach Solet, the antidote to that is saying that you know what bitter is? Bitter is not having Yom Tov. Bitter is not having days of connection to God. I mentioned a little while ago a phrase someone said from this community when he became a young architect and he refused to work on Shabbat. He said to the people who were trying to convince him to work on Shabbat, what did he say? I'd rather be a poor Jew than a rich architect. My friends, that is the answer. When a person sees bitterness in not being a rich architect, then they'll do whatever it takes to become a rich architect. But when a person sees mar, bitter, they see that to be that I can't have the opportunity to be a poor Jew. That's what's bitter. I can't have the opportunity for growth. That's what's bitter. Then my friends, suddenly we start to understand how the month of Cheshvan could result in a person achieving the most beautiful things in the world. So my friends, let us do the most beautiful thing in the world and mourn the lack of opportunity for holiness. That's Mar. What a gorgeous month that is. That, you know what I think is terrible? The worst thing ever. I can't make the class schedule work because my boss won't let me. That's the worst. What is the worst? The worst is when I don't have money to give to tzedakah. That's the worst. Not that I don't have money. That I don't have money to give to tzedakah. Now, my friends, are you starting to understand why it is a Jewish thing to call this month Mar? What a gorgeous reversal of definition in our minds. May Hashem bless us to come back to life, to have our souls take over the steering wheel, to become honest, happy, straightforward, people with integrity, people living with authenticity, not pretending to be something, but actually being the people that we are, that we were destined, that we were supposed to be from the moment from before. And suddenly, that dead us comes to life. Everything we promised becomes not only a wishful thinking statement, but rather the realities of our day to day. And Be'ezat Hashem, drop by glorious drop, we bring not only a flood that is destroying the world, but a flood that brings the world back to its ultimate purpose. A flood of goodness, a flood of tzedakah, a flood of Torah, a flood of the most beautiful things, drop by drop. Baruch Hanei Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi Yehuda ben Akasha Omer.